Reliability has been one of the main topics of discussion on the Generation 3 Tundra, and it's one of the main factors people are considering when deciding whether or not to buy one of these trucks. I'm going to talk about the reliability issues floating around these trucks over the past few years from 2022 to the present 2025 model year, and I'm also going to share my personal experience thus far with my 2024 Tundra Limited sitting right here behind me, so stick around for that. Let's start a few years ago in 2022 when Toyota released the first model year of the redesigned Tundra. As most of you watching probably know, the previous generations of Tundra with the infamous V8 engine are known as some of the most reliable trucks and vehicles in general of all time. So when Toyota redesigned the vehicle in 2022 and came out with the new V6 twin turbo engine in lieu of the V8, it caused some stir in the Toyota and the automotive community, and people definitely were not certain on this change. Why did Toyota go away from the V8 and so on? Then, a couple years after the new generation Tundra was redesigned and released, we had the major engine recall, so let's talk about that as the elephant in the room. I've discussed this in several other videos, and this is not news to anybody who's interested in the Toyota Tundra at this point, but the 2022 and 2023 model years of Toyota Tundra, totaling over 100,000 vehicles, were involved in a large engine recall based on an error in production where some debris was not being properly cleaned out of the engine. So if we look at this source here, HaleyToyota.com, again, I've been using a few different sources when talking about this. I wanted to reference this one just because it really nicely outlines what the problem is, how many are affected, and then the main thing that I want to focus on is this an engineering problem, right? So in this section here, they talked about what we kind of just touched on, how the V8 engine on the previous Toyota Tundra was so reliable, known for its quality. Then when they introduced this new engine, people were uncertain. Then this huge recall got hit and people were like, bam, told you so, look at that, unreliable, right? And this didn't only affect the Toyota Tundra, but also affected some Lexus model vehicles that had the same engine in their trucks. But in terms of this being an engineering problem, that is just simply not the case, which is a good thing, right? If you look at this paragraph here, it says the cause of the recall was machining debris left in the engines during the production process, which was not a fundamental issue with the engine design. This was solved by fixing that process on the production line without having to redesign the engine at all. And then obviously Toyota released this voluntary recall saying that, hey, if you're one of these 100,000 vehicles affected, we can replace your engine free of charge, right? So that's pretty sweet, right? In the grand scheme of things, recalls aren't entirely a bad thing, right? Recalls are there for a reason. Some voluntary, some mandated by a safety association, but they're there so that the manufacturer has to make things right with their customers, right? And the customers don't have to pay or deal with any troubles in relation to the recall. So in the grand scheme of things, yes, obviously you want vehicles to not have a ton of recalls, so it shows their reliability, but as long as the manufacturer is making it right and it's not a super serious continuous issue, I don't think recalls are a terrible thing. Again, something we just talked about here, how Toyota is handling the recall. I think they're making it right. I've touched on this in other videos too. I'd still be curious to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Obviously, a production issue when cleaning the debris out of the engine is not a small thing, and it's definitely something that needed to be fixed, but they did fix it without having to touch the design of the engine. After the middle of the 2023 model year, all the trucks after that were not involved in the recall, including mine, the 2024 Toyota Tundra. So overall, even though this is a large recall and definitely was the elephant in the room when talking about the reliability of these trucks, it doesn't really concern me. I still think that Toyota is one of the most reliable manufacturers out there. They stand by their vehicles. They definitely over-engineer things compared to some other manufacturers, and it's still a great, reputable brand. They're going to stay that way. I think the Tundra is going to maintain its reliability reputation as the years go on and continue. I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't think the reputation's going anywhere. A couple blips in the radar are bound to happen when you redesign a vehicle, and especially when it's getting as much attention as it does by the media and the Toyota community when you introduce such a big thing like a new engine and going away with something that has been so reliable for so long, right? It's going to cause some stir. It's going to get extra attention. So even the smallest things can get blown out of proportion, even though this isn't a small thing, but you know what I'm trying to say. So on the note of recalls, let's continue talking about that for a minute because it is a decent judge at the reliability of a vehicle, even though similar to what I was just saying, I don't think it's all that bad to have recalls out there, right? So if I go to cars.com here, they have a nice search by vehicle that links to the NHTSA Safety Association, right? So if we look at the 2022 Toyota Tundra, we can see that there's been 10 recalls issued thus far. This first one here is the one we just talked about with the engine issues, so we don't need to go over that one again. Beneath that, you can see there was a powertrain issue, but this was a software update. Some labeling, okay. This one here, some hose lines, pipe fittings. Let's see what this one was. The plastic fuel tube routed near metallic brake lines may chafe against the brake lines, become damaged, possibly resulting in a fuel leak. So the dealers will install protective materials and a clamp on the fuel tube free of charge. Okay. This one's for a tonneau cover, instrument cluster panel, software update, brakes, software update, axle shaft. This was early on. You can see this was June of 22, so on the first ones. The flange nuts on the axle shaft on some hybrid vehicles can loosen over time, potentially cause one or both axle shaft to subassemble and separate from the axle housing. So that's a pretty serious one, right? You don't want your axle to fall off while you're driving. That was really early on hybrid vehicles. Sounds like they made that one right away, since that was a pretty serious one. And software updates. So most of these are software updates, a tonneau cover issue. The big one, the elephant in the room, obviously we know we talked about the engine one, that axle one early on, but overall nothing super concerning here. If we go to the 2023 model year and search that, same thing, 10 recalls, nothing really different here as I'm scrolling through that, more labeling, the same ones, spare tire, okay, that's the tonneau cover again. And then we go to the 2024 model year, which is my truck, and this is going to have a lot of the same, not as many, newer vehicle, hopefully not as many come out as time progresses. But then there is the most recent Tundra recall that does affect my vehicle. This is the first recall that I've been a part of, right? And I made a video not too long ago talking about this, and this one is affecting over 440,000 Toyota Tundras between 2022 and 2025, basically all of them, right? And this is due to a potential reverse light failure. There's potential for moisture buildup in the tail lights, can cause the lights to stop illuminating when the vehicle's in reverse, poses a safety risk, reduces visibility, etc., right? And again, this is not a mechanical thing. Yes, it's a design flaw. Yes, you don't want your tail lights to fail, especially at night, obviously, right? Toyota will be notifying owners by mid-July 2025. Once I have the availability to get mine replaced, I will do that. I'll probably time it up with an oil change or something at my Toyota dealership. But again, something like this doesn't really concern me all that much, just because it's not inherently with the design of the mechanics of the vehicle, right? When I think about reliability, I think about engine, I think about powertrain, I think about core safety issues, but not necessarily tail light failing. Yes, I know that's a safety issue, and yes, you don't want that to happen. But again, voluntary recall by Toyota, they're making it right. They're going to replace the tail lights in all these vehicles. It's going to cost them a lot of money, right? It's the right thing to do. They're treating their customers properly, and something like this doesn't really concern me all that much compared to what I see oftentimes on other brands, right? So speaking of other brands, if we go back to our cars.com recall search just for fun, let's just look at, one of the other main trucks in the market. Let's look at a Ford F-150. Let's go back to 2022 to align with the 2022 Tundra that we were talking about. 16 safety recalls, okay? Let's look at some of these, right? Integrated trailer brake control, okay? So for trailer brakes, software update, labeling, lighting, so electrical. Here we go, engine, hard parts, internal mechanical. So this one with the EcoBoost engine, the engine intake valves may break while driving, which can result in engine failure and a loss of drive power. That's definitely something you don't want, right? Axle hubs. Yeah, we talked about that one as well. You don't want your axles to malfunction while you're driving. Lighting, electrical, automatic transmission, powertrain. The ability to secure the vehicle in park can result in a rollaway. Windshield wipers, okay, lighting. A couple pages in this one, right? 16 for the same model year. And I'm not pointing this out to knock Ford or anything. I do like F-150s. They're fine. They're great vehicles, right? But I'm just pointing this out to show that recalls aren't necessarily a bad thing. Every manufacturer has them, and Toyota actually manages theirs pretty well and tend to have some of the lowest number of recalls versus other manufacturers. If we look at some recall statistics over the past couple of years, Here's most recalls by manufacturer for 2024. You can see Chrysler is up there. Yeah, if you guys are aware of the automotive industry, Chrysler doesn't have a great reliability reputation, right? There's Ford at 67. That's a lot, right? BMW, GM, Mercedes, Hyundai. Fewest cars recalls by manufacturer 2024. Okay, so you see Toyota there at 16 with Tesla, Porsche a little less, Nissan there at 18, Rivian, Mazda less than that. Which recalls impacted the most people? So the largest individual recalls. So Tesla had a couple big ones. Ford had a big one there. Toyota's not on this list again. People affected by recalls by manufacturer. Tesla's the most. So even though Tesla had some of the fewest number of recalls, a lot of people affected, right? Chrysler's right beneath them. Ford, Honda, GM, BMW, Kia, Toyota. There's Toyota down there. So again, I'm just pointing this out to show that everybody's got recalls. A lot of people in the Toyota community and automotive community are freaking out because of the recalls that are happening on the Toyota Tundra and other new Toyotas. My argument is that one, recalls aren't that bad because it's the manufacturer making the problem right with the customer. And two, everybody's got recalls. So as long as it's being treated in the right way, it doesn't concern me. And as long as it's not an inherent safety issue or something that's going to affect me long term, I'm going to keep driving my truck because I love it, right? Even if we look back to previous generation Toyota Tundras, right? The most reliable truck of all time, every year has some sort of recall, right? You see in 2007 was the last time there was a major redesign in the Toyota Tundra, obviously minor refreshes between then and the 2022 model year. But there you go, 2007, 12 recalls, 11, 11, 14. And again, these have had more time to develop recalls than obviously the 2022 to 2025 model years had. But just another point to point out that nothing is perfect. Recalls aren't that bad. Reliability isn't solely based on the number of recalls that a vehicle has. And if the manufacturer is voluntarily doing these recalls to make an issue right, I don't see an issue with that. So apart from what's in the news about the Toyota Tundra and what people on the forums are saying, right? I myself own a 2024 Toyota Tundra. I've had it for 15 months at this point, and I've driven, about 23,000 miles, and I have had no issues with my truck, which is a great thing, right? That's what you want from a new vehicle. You wouldn't expect any issues, less than 25,000 miles into a vehicle, and I definitely have not had any, which is a good thing. I did mention I'm part of that taillight recall. It's the first recall I've been a part of, so I'll definitely get that fixed. But again, something that doesn't really concern me. All of my electrical in my truck has been great. All of my mechanical in my truck has been great. I've only done the regular maintenance, which has all been covered thus far by Toyota, because when you buy a new Tundra, your first 2 years or up to 25,000 miles of maintenance are covered at your local Toyota dealership, which is pretty cool. So overall, I'm still super happy with the truck. I'm going to continue to drive it. I'm going to continue to keep an eye on future generations of Toyota Tundra that come out, because I do love the Tundra, and it's something that I'm probably going to stick with into the future. Prior to my 2024, I had a 2015 Toyota Tundra Platinum. I've mentioned that in a few separate videos as well. And I didn't have any reliability issues with that as well while I owned that truck. I only had that truck for about 1.5 years before I switched to a couple other different vehicles. I went through a little phase throughout the COVID years, right? Maybe we can touch on that in another video. But my experience with both of the Toyota Tundras I've owned, both the V8 in the previous generation, my twin-turbo V6 in my current generation, have been flawless thus far. Obviously, it's an early sample size. Like I said, I'm less than 25,000 miles in, and I'm going to continue to update you guys on this channel as time progresses, mileage progresses. If anything goes wrong, I promise I will let you know, and I'll be fully transparent on what that is. But so far, I've had no reliability issues. Other people I know with this truck have had no issues themselves either, and they're very happy with their purchase and the way that their vehicle is driving. The recalls out there in the news, yes, there's some pretty big ones. Yes, they affect a lot of widespread number of vehicles across these model years, but the important part, again, to my point, is that Toyota's making them right. Oftentimes, they're not super severe. Oftentimes, they're not inherent design or mechanical issues. And the way that sometimes they're blown up in the news is not a direct factor of how reliable the vehicle is. So overall, to answer the question, is the Generation 3 Toyota Tundra reliable? So far, in my experience, I'm going to say yes. Now, time will continue to tell if that holds true. You know, I'm hoping to drive this truck for a long time, get to 100,000, 150,000 miles, right? And keep you guys updated along the way on anything that goes wrong, any repairs I have to do, and so on. But so far, oil changes and tire rotations only, regular checkups, replace my engine filters. Nothing's gone wrong. It's driving like a dream. The recalls in the news don't worry me. I think that Toyota builds quality vehicles. I think they're over-engineered compared to other brands. I think they're going to continue to be reliable now and into the future. And I'm not worried about the reliability of my truck as I continue to drive it and haul the family around. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Hopefully this was insightful in some way. I'm curious if you have other thoughts down below. Feel free to drop a comment. I try to respond to any questions or comments that come through on my videos. And if you have a differing opinion than me and you think these recalls are a big deal and that we should be staying away from these trucks or not buying these trucks because of them, please drop that below. I'm curious to hear those thoughts as well. But overall, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.